I'm Bill Herman for IMTS TV, and welcome to another edition of Shop Talk. Our guest today is Gary Vasilash, the editor-in-chief of Automotive Design and Production magazine. Gary, welcome.
Thanks, Bill.
This is always the coolest interview I do every year when we meet every 2 years.
That's
You're the most
kind.
plugged-in guy in automotive that I know, so this is fun for me. What is the outlook, in your opinion, for the new car market in the U.S.?
Well, the new car market is going to be slightly declined this year versus last year, but we're still looking at numbers that are about 17 million. And if we think back to what would be 3 or 4 IMTSs ago, when we were bumping around 14 million, I mean, to get to the numbers we're going to have this year, they would have been breaking out the champagne. And so even though some people might say, it's not so good, I think we're doing a great job in the industry.
You know, occasionally we hear people talking about driverless cars, and we can come back to that. But do you see a tipping point somewhere in our foreseeable future when that'll mean less vehicles, when we have leased vehicles or shared vehicles?
Well, that's an interesting point that I've talked to a number of people who are involved in developing vehicles, and we've talked about that, because conceivably, if you and I were to have a shared vehicle, okay, one might argue that, well, Bill doesn't need to buy a car and we would share this, right? And the issue, though, is that whereas you drive a car approximately 5% of the time, I drive a car 5% of the time, so it's sitting there 95% of the time, and we would say, well, gee, just the two of us, and it's sitting there for a whole lot of time, right? So we would have more people. So there would be more people, and you just factor that out, and you'd reduce the number of cars. However, because our cars are not operating all that often, the wear and tear on those cars is less. So the issue then becomes replacement of these cars that are shared and conceivably self-driving. So it's not going to have an impact on
units, number of units.
Not at all.
Okay, I want to come back to driverless cars, but a little bit about the challenges that you're seeing. You're out there with all the automotive manufacturers, you travel the country. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing the market facing?
Well, although we have all heard and we all know that the EPA is going to be rolling back the regulations in the United States that we were looking for in terms of fuel economy for 2025, the issue is that every single automobile manufacturer is a global manufacturer, okay? Everyone is participating in global competition, okay? So, BMW, for example, has its hugest plant in Spartanburg, South Carolina, from which it is building all of the sport utilities and crossover vehicles that are sold everywhere in the world, right? So, BMW, a German company. Well, the challenge is for BMW that they're still selling vehicles in Europe, they're still selling vehicles in China, and those two areas are not backing down on their standards. So you have a challenge whereby all manufacturers need to achieve what are stretch goals in terms of reducing emissions or getting greater fuel economy. So we might think that we're getting a break in the United States. That isn't happening because General Motors still has to compete in the world, Ford has to compete in the world, FCA is a arguably a European country or company, excuse me. So you've got that challenge. You've got the challenge of how do you work your investment in terms of getting to these autonomous vehicles, because that takes a whole new suite of skills that you may not have had before and probably don't. And so you have to hire a whole bunch of people from Silicon Valley, which are probably a little bit more expensive than the guys in and around places like Detroit and Cleveland and historic automotive places. So you've got that challenge. And and overall, I mean, the big challenge going forward is that there is data that show young people are not that interested in buying cars. So how do you make something that is intrinsically appealing to them?
Right.
So you've got it on the technology front, you've got it on the emissions front, you got it all over the place. So it isn't easy being in this business.
Well, let's stay with those CAFE standards, the corporate average fuel efficiency standards. As you noted, they seem to be easing a little bit. Anything that's going to do to benefit the price point on vehicles? Do you see that any implications there?
Meaning, will the prices go down because they have to
They don't have to make this investment in the standards.
But see, but my point is, they do have to make the
Oh,
investment.
for their up bond.
Because again, everyone develops global platforms.
Okay.
So there's no longer indigenous platforms that you would build a car for America. Now, you might make the argument that if you look at the sales of light duty pickups, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of F-150s that are rolling around in small towns in France or in Japan or elsewhere, right? So you could say, okay, you've got that, but everything else, okay, is pretty much being sold somewhere else. So whether it's a it's a Camry that is being built in Georgetown, Kentucky, well, they want to sell a Camry other parts of the world. Honda's doing it, Mercedes is doing it, Ford is doing it, General Motors is doing it. So it's almost like a false savings.
I see.
It's still going to cost the companies.
Okay.
And they've still got to do the work, they still got to do the engineering, they still got to do the manufacturing. Now, there could be some calibration that they do that modifies the performance of the vehicle for the U.S. market. But again, you got the suppliers that are providing this stuff, and they're providing it right across the board.
Very good. Electrification, seeing a lot more of it, seeing a lot more Teslas on the road. Obviously, Tesla's got some challenges in meeting their production goals, which maybe has them waiting around for others to catch up. But what do you think it's going to be the impact of electrification on automotive?
All right, so there's a distinction that you have to keep in mind here, okay? So there is electrification, and then there is electric vehicles, okay?
Clear that up for me, because
Okay.
I don't know that distinction.
Okay, so basically, I will guarantee you that by 2023, essentially every vehicle that you're going to find in a showroom anywhere across the United States or Canada or Mexico will be electrified. What this basically means is that you'll have a supplemental electrical system that will improve the performance of the vehicle. So you'll have a smaller engine, but you'll have a little extra boost that is going to come from the electrified part. Now, doing that means that they're able to reduce the amount of gasoline that's being burned because you're using electricity, which you're getting, say, from your regenerative braking that takes the friction and turns it through a generator into power. Electric vehicles, on the other hand, would be like a Tesla, okay? So this means no internal combustion engine, no transmission, no drivetrain as we know it, no radiator as we know it, a whole bunch of things all go away, right? So this basically changes the game for automotive manufacturing. Now, to the aforementioned question of Tesla, well, okay, Tesla is still building cars as we know them, right? They still have a sheet metal outer, they still have seats, they have steering wheels, they have pedals, they have radios, they have glass, they have axles and so on. I mean, so it's manufacturing as we know it. So they're still stamping, they're still welding, they're still assembling. Okay, there are those activities, but when you look at the powertrain part, which is a huge part of automotive manufacturing. I mean, the number of components that go into an engine are staggering, right? And the precision with which these things are being made. I mean, the bores in your cylinders, the ODs of pistons, I mean, it's just amazing. And a lot of that's going to go away as we go to electric vehicles. Electrified vehicles, not much of a change, okay? But electric vehicles, big, major change.
Now, my 12-year-old son's a Tesla freak. He's got Tesla everything. We have to test drive them at least once a month. But who else do you see making a play? As we talked about Tesla's production challenges, that's no secret. They seem to be making some progress there. But in the meantime, who else do you see among the major automotive manufacturers that is introducing cars that are starting to ease into the main market a little bit?
Okay, so right now, last week, for example, Mercedes announced a new crossover that they're going to be doing. They have a new sub-brand called EQ, and so all of their electric vehicles and electrified vehicles, both, right, will be EQs. So they introduced this new EQC, which is a small compact crossover, so Mercedes is getting into it. Porsche is going to be coming out with a vehicle, a four-door sports sedan that is awesome. I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's not out there yet. Haven't had the opportunity to drive it. That's going to go straight after the Model S. I mean, you've got the Chevy Bolt, which is highly competitive with the Tesla Model 3.
Different price point?
It's a car that a normal person can afford.
Yeah.
Okay, a person who doesn't have, Silicon Valley wealth. I mean,
Right.
it's a wonderful car. Got good range. I mean, that's the problem with electric cars. The range is too small for most people.
225, 250, 275?
Well, the Bolt will get you up to about 230.
Okay.
But by and large, if you're looking, so Nissan has had the Leaf on the market for a number of years, and so the new Leaf gets you about 110, 130. I mean, which
doesn't give you confidence to travel far
yeah,
from
I mean,
home.
I mean, the thing is that it's they've done the math. None of us need more than that. Okay. And you're able to charge it, but for those of us who have grown up on gasoline and gas stations on every four corners, that seems scary to us. And I drive these things all the time, and it's scary to me, so it's understandable.
Well, along those same lines, we talked about Tesla. There's other cars that are doing this, but more and more we're seeing the advanced driver assistance programs. Cars that are doing more things for us as the driver, thinking for us a little bit. What do you see is the impact of that? And are we going to see more and more of it at all price points, or is that still the exclusive of the exclusive domain of the higher end cars?
All right, so it's ADAS is the acronym that you'll hear ADAS people talking about. So it's Advanced Driver Assist Systems. Okay. But if you think about, so the SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, has basically categorized vehicles in 5 levels. Okay, so level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. Okay, most of the cars in the parking lot outside of McCormick Place right now are level 2 vehicles. It has some driver assistance. Okay, so for example, you have the blind spot warning in your side view mirrors. That's one of those things. Okay, arguably, if you have adaptive cruise control, the cruise control that works.
My car does.
Okay,
Love it.
so you've got that. So when you get to level 4 is basically when it is a driverless vehicle, and you will not be the driver. You will be driven in this vehicle.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is that level 4 vehicles are geo-fenced, meaning that they'll go out and say, okay, we're going to map an area, we'll know everything that's going on in that area, and that car will drive within that area only under specific weather conditions, right? So if there's a blizzard, this thing isn't going out there. But there's level 5, which is all conditions everywhere, okay? We're going to see level 4. You and I are going to see level 4. Maybe, let's see, this is 2018. Maybe by the next show, okay? Maybe in 2020 we'll see this. Certainly we'll see it in 2021. So if we're doing this in 2022, we'll look out the window and they'll be driving around there, okay? But what's going to happen is that, will they be for people like us? Well, chances are what's going to end up happening, initially at least, is the fact that they will be a service. So this will be Lyft, this will be Uber, it'll be something like that, because they'll be running this fleet and they'll be using this vehicle for more hours in the day than normal cars drive. So they're coming, they'll be here before you know it, and it's real.
Well, my son is probably more excited about it than I am. I still like to get behind the wheel and head out, but he's jacked about it. Gary, it's always a pleasure. I love seeing what's coming around the corner, and I'll take you up on that offer to talk here in 20 and 22, so put it in Outlook, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right. This has been Shop Talk. Our guest today has been Gary Vasilash, the editor-in-chief of Automotive Design and Production magazine. For IMTS TV, I'm Bill Herman.